Okay, we are now going to commence our meeting. It's being recorded on YouTube for those who are tuning in from home. And so we're going to call this meeting to order. The land on which we gather today is traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Attawandarock, and the Mississauga peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many Indigenous peoples made up of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement should remind us of our responsibility to ensure the dish, the territories in which we live and work, is never emptied, and that we take care of the land and its inhabitants in a way that ensures its future sustainability. So welcome to this hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of St. Catharines. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please note that the Committee of Adjustment hearing is being recorded, which I already mentioned. There are two types of applications to this committee, applications for consent and severance, and applications for minor variances to municipal zoning bylaw requirements, or permission, where'd that come from? Application for minor variance to municipal zoning bylaw requirements, or permission under section 45(2) of the Planning Act. Evidence may be required to be given under oath if deemed necessary. Please address all your comments through the chair. Additionally, please maintain respect while communicating with the committee, staff, and other meeting participants to ensure smooth and orderly discussion. Copies of the decisions made this evening will be mailed to the applicant and to any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive a notice of decision. Pursuant to the More Homes Built Faster Act and in the matter of consent applications, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the decision. Minor variance decisions may also be appealed. However, they must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, so that'd be tonight. The cost of an appeal is $400. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda?
There is one amendment. It's for a request for a deferral by staff regarding 1847 3rd Street, Louth.
Thank you. We'll get to that after we have a motion from a committee member to approve the agenda. Carrie Leask enthusiastically hands in the air. Thank you. May we have a motion from a committee member other than Carrie Leask to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting? Tom, thank you. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing or the previous hearing if they were not in attendance? I do not, you do not, you do not. Nope, okay, great, thank you. Well, we already know we have, are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
Yes, there is a request to defer the application for 1847 3rd Street, Louth, minor variance A-0126. The deferral was received by the city planning staff for up to 6 months until the applicant satisfies the Niagara region that private servicing can be accommodated on site as required by the Ontario Building Code. I believe I'm not sure if
This is where we're going to invite the representative of this file to come down, get comfortable here in front of that microphone with that white label. So this is a situation where the application was submitted, but due to some unresolved issues, there's a request for it to be referred. So this is an opportunity for you to say who you are, an address where you reside, and if you have anything you want to add to the conversation by turning your microphone on by pressing the lowest, yeah.
My name is Dominic DeFranco, 50 Breckenridge Boulevard in St. Catharines. Just like to defer this to the May hearing.
Okay. Excellent. Members of the committee, Carrie? Well, are you confident that you specifically know you have everything in place and you want to get it done sooner rather than later?
Wrong one. Yes, we just have one item that we're waiting with regards to response from the region, so I'm quite confident we'll have a response in a fairly short manner.
Well, ultimately, if we were to say up to 6 months, you can still come in as soon as you're ready. So we'll give you a little bit of runway. Okay, is there a motion you want to follow that with?
I move that we defer application A0126 for up to 6 months from today's meeting.
All those committee members in favor of the motion, great, we'll see you within up to 6 months, possibly next hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of our regular slate of applications which we're going to hear this evening, the first one on our list is, I'll get there, 423 Lakeshore Road. So that individual will follow the actions of this individual and come down here, get cozy. While you're on your way down, I'll remind people that this application for 423 Lakeshore Road is to facilitate the construction of an industrial building on a site already housing an industrial building. And the staff report, which the applicant has received and reviewed, will indicate that staff has recommended approval for the associated 2 variances to facilitate this. And one, the approval is subject to a condition which is outlined in the report, which the applicant presumably will have read, and if there's any clarifications required, we have staff here to assist you with that. And now that you're here, if you could please turn on your microphone and tell us your name and address where you can be found and contribute to your application.
David Compson, developer, and my residence is in Fort Erie.
Thank you. So given the staff report and its condition for approval, is there anything you wish to add or have clarified?
No, sir.
Are there any of the members of the committee have any questions or clarifications of the applicant? Okay, is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application for 423 Lakeshore Road? Scanning, nope. At this point, we would throw it back to the committee members for a motion. David?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A1726 is presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
If there's no further discussion on that motion, all those in favor? Okay, your application's been approved unanimously. Thank you.
One more comment.
Who makes a comment after application is approved?
I just want to publicly acknowledge Elaine Monroe's assistance in shepherding this matter to this point. She was very diligent on the file, and I greatly appreciate it. It's nice to meet you finally in person.
Thank you for taking the opportunity to pass along a compliment. Even though it's not to me, Elaine appreciates it. Okay, so with such expediency, we will move on to the application for a minor variance at 3 Yonge Street. And, oh yeah, somebody's been paying attention. At 3 Yonge Street, we have one minor variance application request to facilitate the construction of an attached garage within residential, with residential uses located above. The staff report, which hopefully you've had time to read, it's good reading, I know, recommends approval for your minor variance, which was only a reduction of the required 6-meter minimum front yard setback to 5.7. At this point, you will find the microphone on button and share with us your name and address where you can be found, and offer any other comments you might have.
Rob Munger, I reside at the address above, and I have no further comment.
Are there any questions or clarifications from the members of the committee regarding this application? Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? So we will go right back to Tom, I guess. Looks like he's interested in making a motion.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A1826 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you. All those committee members in favor of the motion? Great, your application's been approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving along to our next application, which is at 160 4th Avenue. This is an application for an expansion of a legal non-conforming use. So our typical 4 tests do not apply in the motion that someone will read in. And this is to facilitate the additions to an existing kennel located at that site. And staff recommendation in the report is for approval. Hello, welcome, and please tell us name and address and anything you want to contribute to your application.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zamima Khan, intern urban planner from Cortec, and I have with me here our architect, Mike Jeremiah, and also our client here, Cindy Dune, for this application today.
Given that you have the staff's recommended support in the proposal, it's fairly straightforward. Is there anything else you wish to add?
No, thank you. Yeah.
Are everybody so agreeable? Is there anybody, any member of the committee who has any questions or clarifications regarding this application? Okay.
Through you to staff, just a clarification on the legal non-conforming motions. Which subsection would apply to this?
Subsection that would be most appropriate to reference.
Yeah, 45-2AI.
It's one of my favorite subsections. Thank you. So no further questions or comments. Anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to the application at 160 4th Avenue? Okay, great. This is why we ask, because there might be somebody. So in this case, you have to please join us at the head of the horseshoe there. There's a chair and a micro. You can go through the gate. You can go sneak around that way. There's a chair and a microphone. There'll be an on button by way of a little diagram of a person speaking. Bottom right hand, a light, there you go. You don't have to hold it down, you can hit it once. Just hit it one more time. Great.
Yeah.
So we would also like to know who you are and an address where you can be found, and then invite you to speak.
Jan Clunas, 448 Louth Street. Am I in front of something? Yeah. I live across from the Humane Society.
Yeah.
So, oh.
Well, I thought Humane Society is on 4 corners with commercial properties in each corner. So you're a little bit further down in one of the apartment buildings?
The Ridley Terrace.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I would just like to say that any plan that might possibly involve getting rid of a healthy, mature tree is probably a bad plan and should be adjusted so that it does not do, so that I can speak words, I swear, so that it does not interfere with any trees that might be there. The diagram I saw did not show any current location of that might be conflicted. I mean, there might not be a conflict, which would be good, but if there would be a conflict, I need to say that I believe that should be that it should change.
Well, I can't say I disagree.
Okay.
Rosa,
Turn us off?
is it possible to have the site plan on the screen, please? Just by way of reference. And then while that is happening as a visual, we'll ask the applicant's representative to comment on the possible conflict between trees and the additions.
We've been coordinating with the city, and these drawings have been reviewed by the city staff. We haven't received any comment related to trees. However, if there is any clash, we are willing to work with the city on this and ensure the required replacements are made. Thank you.
So just to add a little bit of substance to that, not that it wasn't juicy enough, there's no bylaw in the city of St. Catharines that regulate trees on private property. yet. So as of right now, it would be the concern and due diligence of a property owner to try and mitigate that. On this site plan, which I thought would help us a little bit, there is sadly no indication of trees existing in the way or otherwise, but we can see that the proposed renovations are internal and adjacent to the building. And I know that that corner, the intersection is well forested. I'm actually not, I don't recall there being trees in that area, but I don't know for sure. But your point is well taken. There's no doubt trees are our friends and should be allowed to live their natural life, but there's no indication that this plan is going to disturb any trees. So thank you so much for contributing. Okay, so is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? Okay. Maybe have any questions, comments, or a motion from a member? The ladder is yours to take.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that permission application A 1926 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved as the extension of the use has regard for section 45(2)(a)(I) of the Planning Act are consistent with the relevant policies. The use of the lands lawfully continues since the passage of the bylaw prohibiting it. And finally, it is compatible with the surrounding uses. I believe I got it all.
We're happy. We're all happy.
road testing this motion, just so you know, this first time. Thank you.
Great. So with respect to this extension of legal non-conforming use, the motion is in support of the application. All those in favor, all those committee members in favor of the motion, including the author, great, thank you. So your application has been approved unanimously, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not meant to appear like we're rushing through this, it just happens to be very efficient until right about now, maybe. Tremont Drive, 58 Tremont Drive. This is our first severance application this evening. This is where we take existing property and consider a request to subdivide it to create a new lot. The city has provided a report which recommends approval. At this point, while I'm rambling on, the applicant and/or agent should be making their way down, as per the examples before, to join us down here. Don't be shy, we're friendly, you should know that by now. So this staff has recommended approval of the requested severance, and there are 11 associated conditions that they are recommending for the approval. Hi. If you could turn your microphone on. Bottom, just one below that. That's one.
Bingo.
Yep, good. So if you could please state your name and address where you either live or work and contribute to your application. As I was saying, their staff is recommending approval in their report. They have 11 conditions associated with that. Oftentimes people might want a clarification on any one of those 11 conditions. But this is your time to speak in support of your application.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Carol Shelby Gill. I am the sole owner of 58 Tremont Drive. I am also the sole applicant of the subject proposal for a single lot severance. On May 14th, Okay. I am Carol Shelby Gill. I am the sole owner of 58 Tremont Drive. I am also the sole applicant of the subject proposal for a single lot severance. On May 14th, 2025, I was given conditional approval of a Niagara Escarpment development permit for a single lot severance. Shortly thereafter, an appeal was brought against my permit issuance by 12 neighboring residents. This initiated a 5-month period of case management conferences brought before the OLT. The first one, August 21st, 2025, the second one, October 30th, 2025, and the third one, January 20th, 2026. Of the 12 named appellants opposing my application, only 6 attended the first meeting with no issues list to present. The second meeting, only 2 attended with no issues list. And the third meeting, not 1 appellant attended, but 1 provided an issues list. Finally, the case was dismissed as the appeals had no planning merit, according to the OLT. And on February 6, 2026, a development permit was issued by the Niagara Escarpment Commission granting land use permission for a single lot severance. Throughout the NEC review process and per the Committee of Adjustment circulation process, the following agencies and their technical staff reviewed this application: the Niagara Escarpment Commission, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, the Region of Niagara, and the City of St. Catharines. Note: technical staff at these agencies do not object to this application and all offer their support and/or conditional support subject to the conditions listed as conditions of approval. I would like to now address the concerns with this application raised by my neighbors in their submitted materials. Number 1, hydrogeology concerns. Groundwater recharge, artesian wells, and potential flooding. This application was circulated to all provincial parties, including the NPCA. Technical staff reviewed the proposal and are satisfied no hydrogeological impacts are of concern. Number 2, geotechnical concerns. Slope stability, erosion, and the integrity of existing retaining wall. The Conservation Authority is responsible for identifying and addressing natural hazards. No slope hazard has been identified on this property. Further, a building permit includes a comprehensive lot grading review by city staff to ensure no negative impact on adjacent lands. Number 3, construction concerns. The risk of damage to existing dwellings from blasting and vibration. Blasting, vibration monitoring, and construction-specific safety protocols are technical matters addressed at the building permit stage rather than the land division stage. The builder must comply with municipal and provincial standards prior to construction. Number 4, built form concerns. Privacy concerns regarding a 2-story dwelling watching neighbors. The proposed dwelling would comply with all zoning requirements regarding height, setbacks, and privacy. Nothing unusual that would warrant privacy concerns beyond standard urban infill. Number 5, land use concerns. That the area is not suited for high-density builds. This application is for a single lot severance to create 1 additional residential parcel. It represents gentle density and is the opposite of high-intensity development. It aligns with local and provincial policy encouraging efficient use of urban land. I'd like to thank you for your time, and with your judgment and experience, I will await your decision with the confidence the above-noted agencies have given my application. With respect, Carol.
Okay, thank you for a well-presented support for your application.
Thank you, sir.
So we're going to go through a process here where we'll, as you have seen, we'll be having committee members ask questions. We will be inviting members of the gallery to speak to the application, and we will respectfully make our way through the information that's available to us so we can come to a conclusion by way of a motion. So members of the committee, Carrie Leask. If you could turn your microphone on and speak into it, please.
I wonder if you could look at the comment letter from All Tremont, I think it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Could you speak to that personally, please?
Sorry? No, I can't.
Why?
I didn't know you were talking to me. I'm sorry, what are we looking at?
I'm speaking to you, sorry.
Okay,
I
yeah.
didn't say that at the beginning.
Normally you speak through.
So there's a letter that the neighborhood has presented in the name of T. Villeneuve.
Yes.
I think you're uniquely qualified to speak as chair in terms of the fourth bullet before we start into the nitty-gritty of the file.
All right, well, my little finger is just scrolling through this application. You want to just to remind me again what the topic was on the fourth? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Neighbors have been advised that there is no point in opposing. Oh, that's yes. All right, now I get it. Okay, so we, the members of the committee, are volunteer citizens of St. Catharines who choose to sit here on our own time and participate in this process, a public process, through which we have support from city staff anytime we need it, through the report that you've all hopefully had a chance to read. And we are not allowed to collude or speak together about applications before we hear them in a public setting, which is tonight. Everything has been done in a manner to allow us to make a decision live before our fellow citizens view here now this evening that you are witnessing at the moment. So it's unfortunate that there might be a perception that the fix is in or that your voices don't matter in the application. We have an applicant who has raised the matter, and we have an opportunity through tonight's hearing to allow anybody who's affected by this to speak, and you'll be given that opportunity shortly. Anything else, Carrie?
In reference to the influence the mayor of St. Catharines may have over how we carry on our jobs, perhaps you could just extend your comments to that.
I sit in the same chair as the mayor. That's kind of where our commonalities begin and end. I did. So, you know, they're not allowed to. As a matter of fact, I think I personally have been in trouble by a city councilor for suggesting that there may have been too close to an application. So we enjoy more than an arm's length distance from our city councilors. As a matter of fact, we are considered a committee of council. So in a sense, they have appointed us to speak on their behalf to remove them personally from decisions which they might feel, you know, puts them in an adversarial position or a conflict of interest. So.
Thank you, Greg. Didn't mean to jump you on that. But.
Yeah, boy, it was a little sweaty up here. But all right, are there any questions from the members of the committee specifically about clarifications or anything that the applicant might want them to share further? No. Okay. So, assuming that many of you are here for this application, the idea is anybody can speak. Ideally, if you have a spokesperson, that'd be great. And if there are multiple speakers, if the person before you has mentioned a number of your topics and you want to add things that weren't mentioned, we'd be happy to hear them. But there's no need to reiterate things that have already been spoken about because we will have already heard them. So, in an orderly manner, I would invite one of you or the first of you who wish to speak to this application to come down and take a seat at the head of the horseshoe, turn on the microphone, state your name and address, and we'll be happy to engage you in conversation. very, very bottom right.
I have an opening statement that I'd like to present to the committee.
Hey, if you could just let us know who you are and
My
an
name is
address.
Anthony Alpe. I live at 57 Tremont Drive, St. Catharines. And I'm one of the neighbors, I guess I'll be the oldest neighbor that has been on Tremont Drive. My comments are, my name is Anthony Alpe, and I'm in a party in this matter concerning the proposed consent of an application for the 58 Tremont Drive in City of St. Catharines. My position is that the proposed severance does not represent good planning and fails to meet the criteria set out in Section 5124 of the Planning Act. This case is not simply about whether the application can meet the minimum numerical standards under the zoning bylaw. Rather, it is about whether the proposed is appropriate, compatible, and in keeping with the established character of the neighborhood. The subject property is located within an R1 zone, where Section 5.3 of the city zoning bylaw is intended to maintain low-density residential development with consistent lot size, spacing, and built form. The proposed severance would create a new lot that is not consistent with the prevailing pattern on Tremont Drive. In my submission, this represents an over-intensification of the property within a stable residential area. The resulting parcel would be more constrained, leading to a reduced setback, increased lot coverage, and diminished amenity space. The outcome are not consistent with the intent of the R1 zone. I will also submit that the proposed raised broader concerns regarding precedent. If approved, it opens the door to similar application which gradually erode the established character of the neighborhood and undermine the purpose of the zoning framework. Further, the proposal does not adequately address the compatibility with surrounding properties. There are anticipated impacts related to privacy, streetscape, continuity, and the overall spatial rhythm of the development along Tremont Drive. Ultimately, when the tribunal considers the criteria under Section 5124 of the Planning Act, including whether the proposal represents orderly development and is in the public interest, I submit that this application does not meet the test. At the conclusion of this hearing, I will respectfully request that the tribunal refuses the proposal consent. Those are some of my opening remarks. Some of the arguments that we have, the role and scope establish the limits of the opinion, started by narrow some of the authority. You are the planning consultant retaining by the applicant, correct. Your role is to support the applicant before the tribunal. You are also the decision makers in this matter, and you would agree that the tribunal must ultimately undermine whether this represents good planning. Zoning bylaws. You rely on the part of the compliance with the R1 zone standards in Section 5.3 of the city zoning bylaw. Those standards include minimum lot frontages and lot area. There are minimum requirements, not targets, for subdivision, correct. The purpose of the R1 zone is to maintain a low-density residential character, including consistent lot sizes, spacing between the dwellings. I would agree that the zoning must be interpreted in light of its intent, not just its numerical standards. You agree with that proposal can meet minimum standards but still be incompatible with its surroundings? And if there's any questions from the committee, I would try to answer them if I can. Also, the prevailing lot pattern. Some acknowledgement that is the lot differs. It's a current lot size, number 7, and if you look at the subdivision lot number 7 is not compatible with its surroundings. It is the smallest lot in the subdivision, which is it's a 0.25 acres. That's the smallest lot in our subdivision. The new proposed lot that is going to be there is .015, way lot less than what the original intent was for the lot of the standards there. Also, you review the surrounding properties on Tremont Drive. If you take a look at those properties, they're fairly large. There's an established pattern of lot sizes along that street. Also, the proposed severed lot would be smaller than many of the surrounding lots, and the retained lot would also be reduced in size. So the proposal alters the existing lot pattern correct. If this they resist, introduces two parcels, which there are currently one correct one. The compatibility, also compatibility includes consideration of mass and spacing and relationship between building correct. The severance will reduce the availability building envelope on each parcel. Reduced lot sizes typically results in reducing setbacks or increased lot coverages. That can change now how the building relates to the neighborhood. And those changes can affect privacy and spatial separation. So compatibility is not about use, it is also about build form. The over-intensification. The goal frame is to densify beyond intended use. The R1 zone is intended for low-intensity residential development. The proposal increases the number of residential lots on the subject property from 1 to 2. That represents an increase in density on that one site. Would you agree that not all the intensification is appropriate in all locations, particularly in stable, low-density neighborhood? The goal is get them to concede broader risk. Also, you would agree that similar lot severances can occur elsewhere in the same zone. If this application is approved, it may rely on and upon examples of the future applications. Multiple similar approvals could gradually change the character of the neighborhood. That type of incremental change is sometimes referred to as a cumulative impact. Stronger and closer would be an cumulative impact is a relevant planning consideration to be correct. Planning Act. Goals bring back to the legal test. You are familiar with Section 5124 of the Planning Act. It is required consideration of whether a proposal represents elderly development or orderly development and whether it is in the public interest, compatibility with surrounding areas, and also key consideration. And those are criteria that go beyond the compliance with zoning standards that should be correct. The strategy tips, the one factor per question, don't keep questions leading, and so on. Those are some of the questions that we like to present to the committee. Zoning R1, zoning as one. And if, like I said, if you have any questions, please refer to me. Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to just create a situation, create some clarity on an R1. So this is an oversized lot, and I just can't remember exactly what the R1 zoning bylaw permits in terms of building type. Could planning staff please refresh my memory? Is it just single attached dwelling units?
Through the chair, so this is a bit of a unique situation. We're in the NEC development control area, so technically the city zoning bylaw doesn't apply at all to this property. It is at the sole discretion of the NEC for where the building will be placed, how tall it will be. But that being said, they do often refer to our zoning bylaw for guidance. And in the R1 zone, it permits detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, subject to the regulations that are contained in the zone. So for a detached dwelling in the R1 zone, the minimum required lot area is 400 square meters.
Okay, so the reason why, and we often go back to the zoning bylaw in terms of permitted uses to say, to look at intensity in terms of what the city might, and the Niagara Escarpment Commission might see as being within the zoning bylaw, townhouses would be something that if a developer were to buy this property, I know it's a what if, but to buy this property and say, hey, I'm going to tear the house down and build townhouses there because the zoning bylaw allows for it, that would be, another scenario that could happen to this property as another extreme. So when personally, I think, and as a committee, maybe, I don't know, I think about that when I think about, hey, if this is an oversized lot and it's going to be subdivided into a lot which would pretty much only support a single detached dwelling unit, a single family dwelling, that might be, actually a barrier to anything more intense happening. So that, I'm going to share with you part of my initial consideration for this application is what I just mentioned, is what the maximum potential of this lot, this property is versus what the applicant is proposing. I'm going to ask Kerry what his question, yes, Kerry.
Thank you for asking that question, because that was one of the questions I had. Through you to planning, I wonder if we could drill down a little further. I notice this is a severance, and I notice that there are no minor variances. So does that tell me that planning ran this proposal through the prescribed setbacks, coverage, et cetera, and there were no variances?
Through the chair. As I mentioned, it's in the NEC development area, so our zoning bylaw doesn't apply. So there's no need to apply for variances because, again, our regulations don't apply in this area. So there's no need to vary them because, again, they don't apply.
So through you,
that they might, in the past, I assume that there's been examples where they would refer to the city zoning bylaw as a framework.
To the chair, yes. So in order to build anything on the property, the applicant's going to have to get an additional permit from the NEC for any building that gets constructed. As part of that permit process, it will be circulated to the city, and the city will be a commenting agency, and we will look to our bylaw to provide comments to them, but ultimately the decision is up to the NEC.
One might think that most of the properties in that neighborhood fall in that same category, correct?
I don't know the exact boundaries of it, but I would assume, because it's pretty much on the slope of the escarpment, that they are also within the development control area.
Sorry, Kerry.
so it is not safe to assume that there may be minor variance adherences or violations. It doesn't tell us anything. Is that correct? In other words, you will never see an application for a severance in an NEC.
Variance.
Pardon?
Variance.
No, I'm saying okay, maybe I screwed that up. You will never see a variance for a severance application in the work that we do. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct, because again, our bylaw does not apply in the development control area for the NEC.
Okay, just a side note, I don't believe we've ever dealt with a file with respect to the NEC that I remember, but that's why I'm running this out. Is it safe to, it's safe to assume that when the NEC granted the development permit, they would have analyzed it in depth as to whether they felt it was appropriate, or is it a rubber stamp for a development permit?
Through the chair to the committee member, much like the city here, the NEC has their own process that they do. So as part of their permit that they issued in basically the endorsement of this severance, which we saw submitted with the application, they did contact the city for it, and we provided comments on it, in addition to other agencies as applicable, such as the NPCA and people of that nature. So no, it's not a rubber stamp. They do go through a process, and they review their policies against what's proposed, and they come to their own decisions.
So it sounds to me that the sausage making, that's a technical term, I understand that, is not something that is visible. It's that they are asking you for your comments. They can or cannot follow them, and we're not exactly quite sure what parameters they used to grant the development permit at the end of the day. Is that safe to say?
Through the chair, they will use the policies that they have in place through the Niagara Escarpment Plan to guide any decisions that they make on permit applications within the development control area. I have personally spoken with Rosie, and so has Kevin, so I can assure you that they're not just pushing it through to push it through. They are going through the process and taking things into consideration and making those decisions.
I think you probably understand where these questions are coming from. Thank you very much. Do appreciate that.
So there's a little example there how we have this, the support of people smarter than us regarding these applications to help us with the fine detail, and that's to the benefit of those listening as well as the current speaker. Anybody, Tom?
Through you to staff, just as an extension of Carrie's comments, I was wondering, had this not been part of the NEC purview, have there been any variances that you would have provided comments for that were not perhaps taken into consideration in granting the approval? Or so if this was being evaluated for an R1 zone otherwise, are there any variants that would be associated with this consent?
Kind of putting staff on the spot since they didn't actually do the evaluation, but you're welcome to answer if you wish.
Through the chair to the committee member, so this is a little bit outside of the purview of the application in front of us tonight, because as you mentioned, we're not evaluating a variance, but just to give a little behind the curtains peek at what happens for NEC permit applications. When we provide comments to them, we do evaluate what we're given against our zoning bylaw as kind of a guidance. So some items that the neighbor here brought up included like a smaller frontage for the property. The requirement is a minimum 16.5. They have 15.36. Also a rear yard setback from a house of 7.5 on the retained parcel. You can see 6 meters. So those are things that were outside of the development control area that staff would evaluate through a variance application. But again, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but because it's in the development control area of the NEC, our bylaw doesn't apply, and therefore that's not what's before us tonight.
It's kind of odd that our only evaluation is the bylaw. You're not applying the bylaw, but we are supposed to make a decision with reference to what? Not the bylaw?
Through the chair, to the chair. There are policies in the official plan that guide consent applications and their decisions. So we have evaluated those policies in the report that's before you tonight. So there are those considerations to help assist you in your decision.
Great, thank you for reminding me of that. Tom, are you satisfied with your response?
Yes, I had a separate question, but it'd be outside of that context.
You have the floor at the moment.
It was a question through you or perhaps the Secretary Treasurer. Is the technical report made available to the public?
Yes. It's posted on the city's website the Friday before the hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And anyone who wishes to have a copy, we could have printed it as well.
Okay, the reason I was asking is there was some concerns in some of the neighborhood comments about flooding risk and infrastructure and all that, and obviously all that was dealt with in the technical report, so I just didn't know if that was shared.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. David?
Through you to planning, can you tell me how transparent and public the Niagara Escarpment Commission evaluation might be?
Through the chair to the committee member, the city's only participation in that process is providing them comments on any permit requests that they receive. They circulate it to us. I am not sure if they're required under the Niagara Escarpment Commission Act to hold a public meeting or anything of that nature. So unfortunately, I'm not really sure. I don't know.
Second to that, can you comment whether the residents could appeal at the Ontario Land Tribunal with regard to a Niagara Escarpment decision? Does anybody have any idea?
We already have, haven't we?
Through the chair. So the original permit for the severance that we see before us issued by the NEC was appealed by the residents. The OLT, I believe, dismissed the appeal and reaffirmed the NEC's decision to approve it. But for the Planning Act decision, unfortunately, the province removed the appeal rights of neighbors, and only the applicant, the owner of the property, and public bodies, which is essentially commenting agencies such as the MPCA and people of that nature, would be able to appeal the decision.
All right, in keeping with committee questions.
I'm just scrolling here, I lost my. So just a clerical question. I notice on the agenda, there's a reference to the owner, Carol Gill, but on the technical report, there's a reference to a Joanne DiFrancesco and Joseph Pinocchio? Here's my translator.
Is there a question, is that a question to the applicant as to who these people are?
Could be, yeah.
So the committee member is pointing out the fact that there's, in one of our documents, there's an agenda, I guess there's a reference to 2 other people who may have been associated with you in this file?
My apology, I have no idea who they are.
Okay. It could just be a typo.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that was a mistake by us, so
Oh,
we just
okay.
noticed that about half hour ago too, so.
Just disregard it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so is committee members satisfied with, so obviously, as per the previous applications, which were relatively simple and understood, we are learning some new things and evaluating it, because this type of application doesn't happen very often, so we're using our resources available. Does the speaker wish to comment, or? Yeah, if you could turn your microphone on, please. Just turn your microphone on. The camera will point to whichever microphone is on. Bottom right. Your red light will come on when you're.
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Sorry, it's okay.
These are some of the arguments we have for the Tremont the lot area. Turning radius and sight lines and safety. The turning radius, sight lines, and safety can be a valid issue, but at the Ontario Land Tribunal, they only carry weight if you're framed then as a legitimate planning consideration backed by logic or standards, not just general concerns. Here are some of the assessed used as effectively. When safety turn-in radius argument, the strongest and tied specific observation constraints such as narrow street width on Tremont Drive. It's not fairly wide, Tremont Drive. Also existing on street parking and limited maneuverability. A new driveway too close to another driveway or intersection. Reduces visibility, example, trees, fencing, parked cars, or lot grading. Awkward lot configuration leading to a tight turning movements. When they tend to fail, they represent there will be more cars on, so it's unsafe. Also, general traffic increased concerns with evidence, speculation without site-specific constraints, and also the tribunal often defers to municipal engineering unless there's a clear evidence of a problem. The character of the neighborhood, serving the lot risk setting and precedent that could gradually change the established character of that area. If the neighborhood is primarily composed of large single lots, introducing a smaller lot severed parcel can disrupt the visual consistency of the streetscape, encourage further severance nearby, also lead to incremental and overdevelopment. You can argue once that severance is approved, it becomes difficult to deny similar applications resulting in a cumulative transformation that wasn't planned for. If we do that, what happens to the other residents on the Tremont Drive? Are they allowed to subdivide?
I'm going to answer that while you bring that up, please. Our decisions aren't precedent setting, but a zoning bylaw, as they may or may not apply to this, is applied to every property in that zone equally. So one thing just occurred to me, and I'm going to ask planning. You mentioned concerns about parking, increased traffic and so on. Again, not knowing exactly the Niagara Escarpment Commission, but presumably in the R1 and 2 zoning bylaw with respect to interior accessory dwelling units and so on, each property would have, in the eyes of the city, if they met the zoning bylaw requirements, could have an interior accessory dwelling unit or two. Is that correct?
To you, Chair, that's correct through our zoning bylaw, but actually the NEC plan does not allow accessory dwelling units, from what I understand.
Okay. Please continue.
Also, intensification of the land use. Even if the proposed technical meets zoning minimum, it may still represent over intensification. Smaller lots often lead to larger building footprints relative to a lot size, reduces green space and tree canopy, increases lot coverage, and decreases permeability. This can negatively impact stormwater, absorption of privacy, and overall livability. Infrastructure. Along some of the dwelling increases demands on water. If you notice, Tremont Drive had to have pumps installed at the bottom of the Tremont Drive because we weren't getting any water on top of the hill, on top of Tremont. So pumps were installed. By adding more residential areas, it's going to increase that demand down at the below. Also, it's going to increase the sewer system because the subdivision was actually built on that number of lots that were established at that time. Also, the storm sewer system would have to be increased because right now we have an awful lot of water that every time it rains, it fills up at the bottom where Mrs. Gill's property is, and there's a runoff for water to run off. By building this lot there, allowing this lot to go there, it's going to affect the water runoff.
So just to comment on that is where we do rely on staff report, engineering report, because they have people who assess traffic and sewer and stormwater management, and they comment on that for our review. So that will have been addressed by the city.
Also, the on-street parking, there's another one. Traffic flow on an already narrow and quite residential street. If the existing infrastructure wasn't designed for higher intensity, that can create long-term strain and safety concern. Also, traffic concern, more homes means more vehicles on a residential street like Tremont. Increased driveway access point can create hazards. More street parking can reduce visibility. Also, higher traffic volume can affect pedestrian safety, especially children, which they are playing right now on the street, basically. Also, the impact on the neighborhood property, severances can directly affect adjacent homeowners. Loss of privacy due to closer building proximity. Also, shattering from new construction. Noise and disruption during and after development. Potential decreases in property values, especially if a new building is out of character. By allowing this building, our taxes, are they going to be going lower or are they going to be going higher because of the density we're going to have? Also, planning policy. Frame your arguments around alignment with local planning documents, official planning or zoning intent of the St. Catharines. Does this severance truly align with a long-term vision for the neighborhood, or is it one of an exception that undermines broader planning goals? There's also approving this goes against their own policies of the Niagara Escarpment or the city of St. Catharines. The tree canopy. If the lot currently has mature trees or green space, severance often leads to trees removal. Also, loss of urban canopy affects drainage, shade, biodiversity, and this contradicts many cities' environmental and climate policies. Okay, that's...
Well, let's take a pause and try and address some of those.
Could I get some water?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, at this point, anything that the members of the committee have heard that they want any clarification on, or any questions directly to the presenter?
Have you read the report generated by the City of St. Catharines? Because the reason why I'm asking,
No, haven't
Yeah.
received it.
pardon?
Haven't received anything from the city of St. Catharines. Any reports?
Would they have got access to that prior to the? Yeah, it's on the website. So the report, there's a technical report that is generated by the city planning department. And there's also different divisions within the city that are asked to comment on the proposal, and they provide input, and it's all bundled together.
Well,
Let me finish. It's all bundled together and put on the website for your edification. It deals with a number of issues that you have brought up that will either be addressed further down the pipeline in terms of grading and drainage. There are certain conditions that the owner will have to satisfy. In fact, I think there's, pardon me while I look, I think there are 11, yes, there are 11 various conditions that they have to fulfill. And part of it is safeguarding pre-existing properties. So it would have been beneficial to review that.
well, basically, I'm not too familiar with the computer. Let's put it this way.
I'm not
I would prefer
expert.
that I would get it in writing. It would be greatly appreciated if I could get the study from the city of St. Catharines, the planning department.
You can get that after the, you can get that tomorrow, I'm assuming. You can make contact and receive. If you can't get it off the website, then I'm sure they'd be happy to provide it to you.
That'd be great.
And are you representing the neighborhood?
Basically, I'm talking for the neighborhood.
Okay, so you're talking to us representing the neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So water is available, and if you
Thank
want to move into your conclusion, we'd be happy to allow you to continue to speak.
Now, here's my closing. Well, the other comment I would like to make is, what about the bank study? We have, the bank is made of a retaining wall on Tremont Drive, a fairly big retaining wall, fairly high, too. If you take a look at the drawings, and it's on the lower slope of the Tremont Drive. Has that been addressed by the city?
Is it specific to the property?
It's, there's one dwelling right beside it, it's next to Mrs. Gill's,
So-
lot 58.
So the retaining wall is not part and parcel of the
No,
subject
not right now,
property?
but if there is, for example, if there is blasting, it could affect the retaining wall.
I don't know whether they have. I suspect they probably haven't.
Because the wall is already starting to lean.
And I'm not going to represent the planning department. Perhaps you could make a comment on that through you to plan.
Well, let's allow the speaker to summarize, and
Okay.
and we'll.
Here's my closing statement, members of the tribunal. In closing, this matter turns to whether the proposed consent for 58 Tremont Drive represents good planning and satisfies the criteria set out in Section 5124 of the Planning Act. The evidence before you demonstrates that it does not. While the applicant may argue that the proposed achieved technical compliance with certain zoning standards, the tribunal has consistently found that meeting minimum requirements alone is not determinative. The central question is whether the proposal is appropriate in its context. In this case, the subject land are located within the stable residential area in the city of St. Catharines, governed by the residential R1 zone. Section 5.3 of the zoning bylaw is intended to preserve a consistent pattern of the development characterized by generous lot sizes, spacing between dwelling, and a cohesive streetscape. The proposed severance undermines that intent. It introduces a lot that does not reflect the prevailing pattern, resulting in a form of development that constitutes over-intensification. The evidence shows that the resulting parcel will be constrained, leading to reduced setbacks, increased lot coverage, and diminished amenity space relative to the surrounding neighborhood. This is not a compatible development. Further, the tribunal must consider the broader implication of its decision. Approval of this application risks establishing a precedent for similar consents, leading to incremental fragmentation of lots within the R1 zone. Over time, this would erode the very character that the zoning framework is intended to protect. The proposal also fails to adequately address impacts on adjacent properties, including privacy, massing, and continuity of the streetscape. Having regard to the criteria in section 5124, the proposed consent not represents orderly development, is not compatible with the surrounding area, and is not in the public interest. Accordingly, I respectfully submit that the application does not constitute good planning. For all these reasons, I request that the tribunal refuses the proposed consent under the Ontario OLT case reference APP 2024-00207. Those are my submissions.
Okay, thank you. So again, we're not the Ontario Land Tribunal, we're the Committee of Adjustment, and so since the night, for me, if I may share, the Niagara Escarpment Commission is the principal authority having jurisdiction over this property, as we understand. My understanding is they've heard the community had an opportunity to, on 3 occasions, to present to them, and that authority having jurisdiction has not said anything that they've been in support of this proposal. That's before us to decide now. And we also have the city, who is an authority having jurisdiction over this, who, as part of our review package, are recommending approval based on 11 conditions, many of which address things like not increasing stormwater runoff from this property to the next, and geotechnical reports and grading, drainage plans, and so on. So I guess that is on one side, and the other side is what we're hearing from your representation of you and the citizens living adjacently. Another thing that I consider, just by way of transparency, is the fact that the zoning bylaw is a living, evolving document. While a neighborhood may have been established 150, 20 years ago, any modern incursion or any modern change to that is weighed against a current zoning bylaw, today's zoning bylaw. Not that older properties can't exist the way they were, but the evolving zoning bylaw is evolving in a way that represents modern expectations for planning. And for St. Catharines, that's increasing density in low density zones like R1 and R2. So in many ways, we say, does this application meet the intent and purpose of official plan and zoning bylaw, which wants intensification? So I could interpret that as yes, in that respect, it does actually meet it, because the zoning bylaw does encourage lot intensification. So again, I'm just sharing with you some of the things going through on me, only one vote of 5 that we're evaluating, to let you know that this is not a preconceived decision we're making this evening. We are responding to the information that was provided to us and that we're receiving now. Is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to add to this conversation? So thank you. If you take your seat, and we'll replace you with the next speaker. And we will continue to build on the points that you have made. There's no need to reiterate them, but we will add to them. Yes, absolutely.
Through you to planning. The gentleman made concerns about damage to retaining wall. I assume damage, period, whether it's a retaining wall or whatever, in the neighborhood would be required to be repaired should any damage occur. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the committee member, it sounds like this retaining wall isn't contained on site. It's kind of, you go down the street and then around another corner and it's at the bottom there. I'm unsure if the retaining wall is within the city's right-of-way or if it's on private property. But, if a retaining wall is failing, then that means if it's on city property and it's the city's responsibility to maintain it, they would do so. If it's on private property and the responsibility of that owner to maintain it, if we received a complaint, it would probably go through our bylaw process and be resolved that way. But there would be repairs made one way or another to it.
Okay, so we're going to continue with the swap out. Thank you again for your contribution. It was well considered. So for our new participant, same idea, get comfortable, turn on your microphone, name, address, and please share with us what you want to contribute. Very bottom,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, my name is Adrian Barnett, 60 Tremont Drive, right next door. I don't want to repeat, obviously, what Mr. Alpe's covered, but I'd rather bring out one of the difficulties between the NEC and the city. They play a game where the NEC says it goes to the city, even though you've contradicted that. They told us that it was a building permit would have to be issued by the city. When we try to nail down, it's like, what's the old saying, nailing jelly to a wall, in terms that NEC says it's the city, then the city says it's NEC, and the track record in the neighborhood, which I wasn't even going to address, but I'm sort of being forced to, is that NEC said the building permit would be by the city. But tonight, you said that, no, it's the NEC is going to issue a building permit.
Well, we're going to clarify that right now, because I feel like someone in here knows the answer to this. Let's just test if you're right.
I do. I appreciate the difficulty of trying to nail jelly to the wall, but I have an answer. They will still be required to obtain a building permit. It's the zoning regulations that are not applicable here of the city's zoning bylaw. But the Ontario Building Code still applies to any house that would be constructed here, and they would still have to obtain a building permit with the city for that.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example of what happened in the past. There was a subdivision of the end of one of the lots, and a house was built. We had 2 days of hearing with NEC, which a lot of the people attended. They gave rules and regulations on how the building was going to go up. As they built, we recorded each violation. My wife and I went over to Georgetown. There were definitely violations. The Niagara Escarpment Committee overruled it. We persuaded maybe 3 or 4 other people to switch sides, but not enough to carry it. And the house was built, including one of the neighbors. When they bought the house, they were guaranteed that this would follow the building permit in terms of height. It finally went up in violation of that, and they just shrugged their shoulders and walked away. So the difficulty we seem to have is, first of all, nailing down who's responsible for what areas. We asked the Niagara Escarpment Commission for minutes of their meeting so we could see how they thought about it. We got nothing back. The next appeal came back that we were basically going to have to engage lawyers and engineers, et cetera. And when we looked into it, we were looking in excess of $50,000. So we backed off.
Well, I mean, that's part of this process is who's going to, who's going to bring evidence-based information to a hearing to evaluate as opposed to emotion-based?
Absolutely.
So
I mean-
from what I heard about from what I thought I heard about the previous 3 hearings at the OLT, that we're calling it, that they weren't, I thought I heard that they weren't hearing evidence-based information, and then that usually comes from an expert. That expert usually wants to get paid, and then you're looking at a $50,000 bill to argue against a development in your neighborhood. So I think it's understood that an individual or a group of people can only go so far on their understanding before they engage a professional planner or an architect or an engineer. So it's kind of the way this works, unless you're willing to, buck up for the evidence-based information to make a point.
Yes.
So tonight, I would argue that we're not in any different situation with respect to our review of this application. We have an understanding of the process that the city goes through. We certainly have an understanding of the building permit process. The Niagara Escarpment is a bit of a nuance that pokes its head into an odd file every now and then. I can't remember the last time we had a file quite like this, if ever. I've been doing this for 16 years. Volunteering for 16 years to do this. At this point, responsibility is being taken by a jurisdiction having authority over this property. Right now, it's the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and I can't imagine them taking responsibility for life safety of the occupants of a house without sharing the responsibility with the St. Catharines Building Department, who are going to say, this is how a building has to be safely constructed. I can't speak to what you observed however long ago with that example you gave, but I happen to be in the industry, and the building department likes to quote every aspect of the building code, and all of that is to establish a minimum safety standards for a building being built. So I have no reason to believe that this building won't be subjected to a building code review.
Well, then I'll ask is, in violation, what do you propose we do?
So if you were to observe,
that happen.
Yeah, so again, it would have to be evidence-based, I would think. So I know what the building code, how it reads, and it's a horrible read. It's not written by any rational human being, but it is there. And I would assume that if you spot something that you think is in violation of the building code, you would have to do your own research and point to that section and clause and paragraph and say, hey, city, how come you overlooked this? And then a discussion would be had.
But to whom do we address it? What I'm getting at is, we did that last time.
I can't speak to that, so.
But we have to, as the neighborhood. I mean, we've been there 32 years.
Your elected official might be a conduit for that sort of thing. Presumably, if you, somebody representing a group of people and there's a concern, and if you want to know how to navigate your way through City Hall, I would think that your city councilor might have an obligation or an interest in helping you through that department.
Okay, when I asked the councilor, just to give you an example, he said the city runs into this where they give a permit and the trees are to be preserved. They come along and the trees are removed, and then they shrug their shoulders. That was one of your councilors that told me this. And
It's our counselors, not my counselor.
Yeah, but it is ours.
Yes, our counselor. Yeah, so I can't speak to that. I mean, there are rules. Again, I'm an architect. I come across this in my own practice, and I'm a tree hugger, so I make sure the trees don't get removed.
But, I mean, I talked to a number of people outside of here, and they say it's standard to put money in an escrow account.
Well, I think that's beyond, we are now have strayed beyond our mandate. So to bring it back,
Okay.
we have an individual who owns a private piece of property It's a large piece of property. They've made a request to the authority having jurisdiction, the Irish Government Commission, about severing it to get their blessing. The blessing was had, and the next step was to come to the Committee of Adjustment to confirm the severance as presented in this application. That is our mandate, and I feel like the decision makers have heard the previous presenters' comments and now your comments. So if there's anything you wanted to conclude with, I would like to give you the time to do that. Otherwise, we can move on to either our next speaker or continue our discussion as we hammer this out.
Okay. I think I made my point about the confusion between and the lack of follow-through between the Niagara Escarpment Commission and the city's building, and that concerns us.
Your point has been made. Thank you. Appreciate it. Do appreciate it. Okay. Just in between going back to the gallery, is there anything that we've heard among the committee members that we want any clarification on from staff before we forget? So we'll go back to the gallery. Is there any other person wishing to speak this application? Please come on down. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Sorry but you can spend your 5 minutes right there. Just don't put your feet up on the table. It's frowned upon. Okay, so we are off of recess, back into the meeting. We have all returned, somewhat refreshed with clean city water. So, we had two speakers present, building on a conversation. We have a third speaker who is going to turn their microphone on, give us their name, address, and continue to add to the conversation, please.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lu Men. I'm the owner of 84 Tremont Drive. And I just first of all, I need to ask two questions. Right now we're talking about the regulation. I heard there's 2 points. The first one is the city from the lady from city said the minimum, the requirement of the lot size is 400 square feet. Is that right? Square meter.
Through me to the, yes, we can answer that.
Yeah, through the chair, square meters.
400 square meter, that's
Yes.
4,000. That's 4,000. So here we can see that the lot size, the frontage is only 15 feet. And the depth is 31. That's meter or feet? No, it's meters. That's meters. Okay, this is meters. 15 by 31, 15 by 30 is 450. It's just merely just a little over the minimum requirement.
Actually, I'm going to try and beat you to your punch, just in case you're going this way. What is the minimum lot size for a single-family residence in St. Catharines?
Through you, Chair, for the R1 zone, it's 400 meters square.
So
400 square meters.
400 square meters,
Yeah.
correct.
So we have now is 450. Just
so it's larger than the
it's
minimum
larger
lot
than
size.
minimum. Just a little bit, just a little over the minimum. And the frontage, what's the minimum frontage?
Through you, Chair, the minimum frontage is 16.5 meters.
16.5 meters. This is 15. It's less than the minimum, right?
Yeah, I would say you're correct.
Okay. And also, we talk about the city bylaw is not applied to this area, so I don't quite understand why.
Well, I'm going to try and answer that just to give them a rest. There are zones of land in and around our communities which have a different authority who manage them. So we have the Niagara Escarpment Commission, we have Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority who have jurisdiction around waterways. Niagara Escarpment Commission obviously has jurisdiction around the escarpment. Tremont, the lovely neighborhood on Tremont Drive is on the escarpment, so they have overriding jurisdiction.
Who's controls here?
Pardon?
Who is on control of this area?
So, the Niagara Escarpment Commission has jurisdiction over this particular property.
Okay, so not City of St. Catharines.
Well, that's what we have been repeatedly reinforcing, is that in this case, what we've heard is the Niagara Escarpment Commission has ultimate authority. There was an application made to them, not an application, but a complaint. I'll go with this application, or a hearing was had. It was their time to do what we're doing now, was listen to the concerns, review the application. Our understanding was there was 3 meetings, and as a result of the participation, they had no complaints. With this.
Sorry, I know this isn't orthodox,
All right.
but if I may, Greg.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So no, the zoning bylaw, you're correct, does not apply from the city's perspective on this property. Our official plan does continue to apply. It designates the property low-density residential. And the authority to grant consent applications still lies with the city, which is why it's here in front of us, and we're listening to it from the city tonight. So the city still has the authority over creating new lots, but our zoning bylaw does not apply
So
to new lots
just
in
now
this
we
area.
talked about just now the 400 square meter and the 16 meter frontage. Where it come from?
Through the chair to
It's the city
neighbor.
bylaw or the Ontario
Yeah,
regulation?
so those numbers come from the city bylaw.
Is it provincial or just city?
It's the city, it's not with the province. The reason we keep referring to them is because The NEC and the city looks to them for guidance for when development comes through in the development control area.
Okay, can I
But
understand
talking-
it like this? Even the city has not, the city bylaws not apply, we still can reference this kind of numbers as important guidance.
I think the
Through-
answer is yes.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so that means the two things we talked about, 400 square meter is okay, but the frontage is not okay, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, this is my first part. The second part, we talking about the neighborhood character of this of our neighborhood on this Tremont Street, Tremont Drive. And I live at number 84. If you can see this, the city map, the black one is my
Subject property?
My home is here.
Okay.
84, you can see 84 is maybe the smallest in the street, smallest lot. And my house, the frontage is 70 square feet, and depth is 200. And compared with this one, the 15 meter, 15 times 3 is 45 feet? Yeah.
Just one question, in case there's a relevant,
Are there any minor variances with respect to this file?
excellent point, okay. I'm being reminded that, again, to trying to focus us, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have two types of applications in this committee. We have applications for severance and consent, and we have applications for minor variance. So what you're asking about are, does this property or the proposed development meet the zoning requirements for setbacks and so on? And if it doesn't, that would be a minor variance application. So at this point, that is not the application we have before us, it's the severance application. So all we're doing is approving a lot. We're not approving a building. Nowhere in this drawing is there a footprint of a building. This is just creating those 4 lines that make or that 1 line that subdivides this lot to make a new lot. So what you're asking about, I guess the point is, has no relevance on this particular application.
I just try to show the, let's think about, I'm not talking about the building permit, just the land. I think the building a house in the minimum required, just a little over the minimum, is not complied to the neighborhood characters. I just want this out.
That is a valid point.
Yeah.
If that's a point you want to make, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any
Because
other?
like I said, my house maybe is the smallest one, but I have 70 feet.
Yep.
The frontage.
Okay.
It's much larger than this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great. Well, so we understand that.
Yeah. So the house is a low-density neighborhood, and just imagine in smallest allowed lot building a maximum allowed house, how will it look like?
Yeah. So that would be that is for the future of this application. Right now, this is, I guess, phase 2. Phase 1 was going through the Niagara Escarpment Commission, getting their blessing.
Okay.
Phase 2 is us determining whether or not this lot can be severed. And then we'll see what the results are of that. So thank you for your time.
Okay, that's all I want to see.
I'll take this opportunity again to ask if there's anybody in the gallery anyone new who wishes to speak to this application. Well, you already spoke.
He speaks for us.
I understand. But is there some?
I've got a couple of concerns on the questions and the answers that the lady gave us.
Well, I mean, in terms of trying to maintain order and the flow of this hearing, we would have. All right, if you can be concise, you kind of had your time already, but all right, we'll be happy to try and answer them.
There's one individual house on Tremont Drive. It's a brand-new house. It's been built maybe 3 years ago. The city of St. Catherine indicated that the height of that individual house is supposed to be a minimum or a maximum. Is it 32 feet height?
Through the chair to the neighbor. So again, I apologize, I know I'm sounding like a broken record. In the zoning bylaw, the maximum height is 11 meters, which is probably around 32 feet if you convert it. But again, it doesn't apply, so it's ultimately the NEC who decides the maximum height. But you look to the zoning bylaw for guidance. And the way height is measured is not to the very peak of the roof, just for an understanding. It is measured to mid-peak of a roof.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, there's things that we see happening, there's rules that we can read and how we interpret them, and then whether we see things happening that are correct or incorrect. It's, we ultimately rely on our building department and our building officials to review plans of buildings before they're built, and then when they're being built, it's their responsibility to ensure they're built in accordance with approved.
Through the chair to the lady, that house is 34 feet.
34 feet to what? The
height.
eave or the ridge of the roof?
Top of the roof.
Well, it's probably half the slope of the roof that you're
No,
supposed to measure
there is no
to.
slope, it's a flat roof.
That you got me
Okay.
there, okay.
So
It would be
now,
the top. then.
Going back,
Just wait.
can I finish, please? Going back to that original house. There is a relevance on it, because I brought it to...
No,
I brought it to the attention.
Okay, you're speaking to me, so just please come to your point, that'd be great.
I brought it to the attention of the city that the house was too high. And the city says, well, what do you want us to do? They rubber stamped it and said, it's okay for now. We're not going to do anything about it. The house is built. That's one instance. It seems like that the city is rubber stamping anything that violates the bylaws.
Well, we're not employed by the city. We are not under we don't have the fancy
Because
healthcare plan. We are just, and we can't work on innuendo stories about
No.
things that you've seen. So,
One question I want to ask the committee.
well, you've already.
If
okay.
you were living on Tremont Drive and you were living next door to 58 Tremont and that home was being separated, how would you stand for it?
That's not a fair question.
It is.
So
It is a fair
It is
question.
not. It's an emotional. It's a question on emotion. You're asking us to give an answer about emotion,
No, I'm not.
which has nothing to do with
I
this.
just want them to think about it.
Okay, we're thinking about it. Thank you, but we really must move along.
Okay.
So if I could
Thank you.
please ask you to go back to your seat.
That's
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this application? Okay, and if there's anybody who's for the application, they can also speak to it as well. It doesn't have to be against.
Yes?
That's part one. Part two is name and address.
Anne Marie McClatchy, 74 Tremont Drive. Oh, I hate doing this kind of stuff. It may not make any difference, but I just feel a need to just, nothing personal. I've been in my house 9 years. When I moved to Tremont Drive, I was told that I couldn't even cut a tree without contacting the escarpment. And what I'm hearing here is it the escarpment? Is it the city? Who's making decisions?
I'm not confused anymore. What I heard was very clear.
Okay, because we're now focusing on anything to do with our escarpment is going through the city of St. Catharines. The main concern I have, other than cutting trees down to build on this property, is there's got to be 9 or 10 driveways in that little curve. If another house is built, that will add another driveway. There's multiple children that play right in that area. It just sets up a risk for harm and injury.
I mean, I suppose one other aspect, there's no limit on how many people can live in a house. So let's say someone moves in, they bring their extended family, their in-laws, and there's 10 people, and there's 10 cars. There's no bylaw, there's nothing to prevent that from happening, because that's not the way things work. So the ebb and flow of the number of cars, who has a car, who takes the bus, is something that's it's hard to measure against denying or approving an application. It's understandable that you add a house, You therefore must be adding at least one car. People, usually if there's two people, you should have their own car. I mean, you can look at it that way, but again, we're looking at this, we're evaluating this based on the specific information we have with respect to considering a severance. And it's understood. Any other application where this was happening, most of the comments that we heard, we would have heard, if it was anywhere else in St. Catharines, the exact same comments from the residents. If they don't want it, there's going to be a set number of things that they're going to bring up: traffic, parking, safety, stormwater overflow into properties. We hear that regularly, and it could be an honest concern, but there are procedures in place and people reviewing this application throughout the process, planning, building, during construction, that we are led to believe are to safeguard all of the neighboring properties. This thing is new. It cannot put a hardship on the adjacent properties with respect to a number of things. Yes, if a property exists, one could assume there's going to be at least one more car and certainly one more driveway on the street. Is it actually a hazard to children playing on a steep road? I don't know.
It already is. To add another is just adding to it.
Well, if that was your comment, we're happy to hear it and consider it.
I also want to just say that as far as the previous meetings that were available, we're all on Zoom, and most of the neighbors on my street don't use a computer. They asked many times, could we have in-person meetings, and it was not allowed. It was not permitted. So there would have been many more people coming forward if they had had that opportunity.
Well, this is, so the hope is, at the very least, depending on, regardless of what the final decision is, that this was your opportunity to come here in person, it was your opportunity to give a cumulative representation of what your concerns are, and of the 4 people who have spoke, you have all added on to the concerns. So at this point, I think you've had the opportunity to speak your mind, but ultimately it'll be a decision made between the 5 of us. And if we're ready to do that, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. If you have anything else you wish to add,
No,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this application? Have you changed your mind? No, I'd like to speak. Well, then please come on down.
I'll just leave it on. It's already on.
It's already on? My name's Tina Fabian. I used to live at 57 Tremont Drive. My parents are Tony and Doreen Alpe. They reside at 57 Tremont Drive. And all those people back there, I've known ever since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Now, my parents have wanted to build on their property, and they've wanted to separate and put a granny flat, because they are getting older, and I was wanting to move into their home, and they were denied that. And all these people back here have wanted to put things on their properties, which they've been denied.
Didn't someone mention a house that was built 3 years ago, subdivided, built 3 years ago in the neighborhood in a previous discussion?
No.
I felt like someone mentioned it.
It wasn't subdivided. The property house was torn down, and
Okay.
Yeah. And they've all had to abide by rules and regulations for the last 40 some odd years that these people have lived on Tremont Drive. And every time they go and they want to do something to their homes or to their properties, they've had to go and they've had to ask for permission. And every time they've always been denied. Either by, please, just wait a minute, please, let me finish. I've respected and I've listened to all of you, so please, give me the opportunity to please finish. Now, they've gone and done everything that's required to them, to what they've had to do to get what they needed to do in order to either do something to their property or to take something off their property. And they've always been had to go to the escarpment or gone to the city. And the escarpment says one thing, and it passes the buck to the city, and the city turns around and passes the buck to the escarpment, and they can't do it. And now all of a sudden, they've got to abide by all these rules, and they've made this beautiful community with exclusive homes, and now you guys they're coming up with separating this lot that is turning this community that they've made beautiful with these exclusive homes, and you are going to allow them, or allow this lady to sever this piece of property.
No, we're deciding whether to allow her to do it.
Well, you're deciding.
And she has
Pardon me, excuse me.
through the process of the Niagara Escarpment Commission, like all your neighbors has. She's now at the city being bounced over to here. She might get bounced to Niagara Escarpment Commission. So how is her process any different than the other processes that you say your neighbors went through that they were ultimately denied on? I mean, she's not getting a free, so far it hasn't been an easy ride or a free walk through the process. So she's in the middle of the process, which is yet to be determined whether she's going to be successful.
I know the process that these people have gone through.
I don't, because I wasn't involved in their application. I don't know if they're asking to remove a shed, subdivide a property which is too small. I mean, this application, we have all the facts in front of us. I cannot, any of the other stories or references that were given tonight mean nothing to us without knowing the same amount of information we know with this application.
Granted. I accept that, but I know what my parents have gone through for this. I know what my parents have gone through to put a granny suite, and they've been denied this. And now to see this go through
Hasn't
the
gone through.
escarpment.
She may be denied.
No.
If we can get to the
What
end of this
they've gone through
hearing.
as far as the escarpment, denying my parents to put a granny suite on, and then having this go through the escarpment and now go through this, and then trying to explain, getting some answers from you guys, and then having it pass back and forth, back and forth. It's very frustrating, especially when
Okay.
these people have worked all their lives to build the home and be in the homes that they are, and be in an exclusive area and have the escarpment and the city of St. Catharines put rules and regulations on how they should be keeping their property and maintaining their homes and everything like that, and then have something like this. Wouldn't that frustrate
I don't
you?
tell you. I mean, no one can tell you. It's the way it is. If you participate in the planning process, at some point you would have received, and if you lived there for as long as you have, the zoning bylaw have been probably rewritten 5 or 6 times since then. And that's a public process. And your parents or you may have received a letter saying, hey, come out and be part of this review of our official plan and zoning bylaw. And you probably said, I got better things to do, and didn't attend. I mean, it's a process that only people pay attention to when it's at their back door, in their neighborhood, and then they start to pay attention to what the zoning bylaw means. Our job is to try and understand the zoning bylaw as best we can, apply it to applications that come before us, and evaluate the applications based on the information that were provided through reports and our previous knowledge at a meeting like this in the public with tangible information, and that's what we're doing right now. I don't think anyone, while it may be moving to hear the experience of other past things in the neighborhood, it is not relevant to this decision-making process. I'm sure, I'm a citizen, I have an outstanding building permit with the city right now. I'm trying to get closed for my own house. Do you want me to, I could share, we could share all of those concerns, but it's just not relevant to this conversation. So if there is something about, specifically you want to say about the idea of this property being severed that you think, and a reason why you think it should not be, that is new, and in addition to what we've already heard, we are welcoming you to say that. But frustration with the city is not one of the criteria with which we're going to be making a decision this evening.
I don't think the property should be severed because it doesn't go according to the way the rest of the street is.
So this will probably become the smallest property in the neighborhood, and therefore Therefore, you feel it doesn't fit in because
it is
now
an exclusive area.
Well,
The street, the community itself in that area in Tremont is an exclusive area. It has exclusive home, $1 million homes, and to fit a home on that, you're not looking at putting $1 million home on that piece of property.
Okay.
It would be absolutely, as
Thank-
far as I'm concerned, an eyesore.
That contributes to our conversation. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Okay, I am obliged to continue until people feel like they've spoken, to ask if there's anybody else wishes, anybody new, ideally. I already tried to allow someone else to speak, and it didn't work the way I wanted to. So, anyone, you've already spoken. Oh, I'm sorry, you spoke on a different application? Okay. Didn't recognize you with that mask on.
I just want to say, I do not have a dog in this race. I had not known this place even existed before today. I used to ride when I was a teenager, but that was a long time ago.
Okay.
It seems a lot of the issues people have are saying like that something is from a city's it's from a city, no, it's from NEC, no, it's from a city. Would it be possible to get a signed statement saying what exactly is for the city versus the NEC, so that if anything comes across that in the future, then it can be referred to as that?
I mean, right now, this is a public process. It's being recorded. We've heard people clarify the roles. I mean, ultimately, you can do your own research. I'm not sure what statement would be written and by whom,
Or not
so I can't imagine how that would work.
Or not necessarily for this, but if there appears to be sufficient issues with who's in jurisdiction for what and which organization is responsible for what, then I think it would be beneficial both here and in the future if there was some clear thing that people could refer to.
Well, we'll take that under advisement. Anything you wanted to add, Carrie?
The only thing I could say at this time is perhaps you would like to have a discussion tomorrow, the next day, with somebody from planning making that request outside of the Committee of Adjustment, and you can pursue it. It can be pursued that way.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's okay, thank you. Hopefully that was provide you some guidance. All right, one more opportunity for anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application. Okay, so the idea is everybody feels like even if they didn't speak, they heard someone present their concern. So we're closing that opportunity. There's been a lot of discussion. So now we will go back to the members of the committee if there's anything that has arisen that requires clarification. This would be the time to ask our available resources.
Through you to staff, I just have a clarification of the next steps in this process, just because it's a little unique. Normally, if there was a consent that was proposed, we would hear that. If there was any variances associated with that, we would hear that as well. Then at the building permit stage, if whatever structure was proposed, we would have a minor variance application potentially for anything that would come up at that point. What's the next step in this situation where a development permit has already been issued? We don't have that in front of us. Was a proposed structure or arrangement of the lot proposed at that point, or is there another permit application subsequent to this consent that the NEC would hear to permit whatever is ultimately going to be proposed if it hasn't been already?
Through the chair to the committee member, I can appreciate there's a lot of back and forth. It is very confusing, especially if you're not versed or don't deal with these types of things on a regular basis. So what's happened so far, I'll start from the beginning and I'll go to the end just so we're very clear. It's in the development control area of the NEC. So the applicant made an application with the NEC to endorse basically the severance we see before us tonight. They received approval, it was appealed, the appeal was dismissed, so ultimately approval was given. Now it's being brought in front of committee tonight to create a new lot, and you will decide if that gets created or not. If you decide, yes, let's approve this lot with the associated conditions, the next step would be going back to the NEC to get a permit for a building on the property, because currently the permit only speaks to the lot and the lot lines and the lot fabric. It does not speak to a 1-story, 2-story. It doesn't say anything about a building, so they're going to need to go back to the NEC, get another permit for a building on the property. Once that receives approval and has gone through the appropriate channels, next stage would be getting a building permit with the city. And then what the city, so basically what this NEC will evaluate is the appearance and the footprint of the building. Its built form, if you will, how high it is, how far set back, things like that. And then when it comes back to the city for the building permit, our building department will look at it from a code perspective. So very, very technical things such as, you know, are the studs in the walls spaced appropriately? Is the foundation appropriate? Is there a need for a geotech? Is the soil stable enough to support a building of whatever nature they're going to be proposing? And that is the review process. Once they receive that permit, then it would be construction if we get to that stage of the building.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the members of the committee? No. Should the applicant wish to make any further comments, you're welcome to. If you don't want to, I feel like enough has been said. Your call. So we're at the point now where the discussion is closed. It's now a decision, we're going to ask a committee member to make a motion, and we will vote on it independently, however we choose. David?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move the consent application B08-268C as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as it is consistent with provincial planning and bylaw goals for infill. It meets the bylaws for lot size. Many of the issues addressed would be either addressed through the building permit process, or repairs through damage would be addressed. But
That's not how this works. You'll have to remain silent, please, until we're finished.
Anyone on the street has the same ability to apply to, consents to sever. And this has already received the approval of the NEC and gone to the Ontario Land Tribunal, who confirmed the NEC decision. As a result, I believe that the application should be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, as the consents are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard to the provisions of Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan, and with conditions fulfilled will also comply with the zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial planning statement, and does not conflict with any applicable plans.
So a motion has been read in favor of the staff report, including the conditions that were associated in the staff report, including the conditions, in support of the application. Do the members of the committee require any discussion before voting on the motion? Okay, we have clarification.
To have one clarification about the reasons, because there is no zoning applicable. So if we could scratch that out.
That as I finished.
Is that understood then? Does he reword? Okay. Kerry?
I just think it's important to remember, because we just heard it, that the applicant is going through the process at the NEC with respect to the land severance, and also having to circle back, if successful, for a development permit with respect to the structure, which I'm assuming can be appealed to the OLT as well. So there are two levels of purview by the NEC. And in addition to that, my comment is, I take some comfort in knowing that the NEC not only approved it, but also on appeal dismissed it for inexplicable reasons that I don't need to get into. I don't understand why there wasn't a position put forward that had some planning context to it, because as I remember, there was a comment regarding no planning merit. That puzzles me, but again, I'm not getting hung up on that. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, show of hands. Okay, your application's been approved unanimously. We didn't know that until just now. Okay. You are able to leave the desk and continue on your journey through this process. So we still have another application, and during this whole time, this computer restarted on me and just opened up now. So now our final application this evening is for 83 Lincoln Avenue. It's a minor variance application for a proposed 4-unit townhouse dwelling with 2 accessory dwelling units in each townhouse. There are 5 minor variants associated with it, and we have a staff report which comments on their recommendation.
Excuse me, Greg, could we ask for silence in the room?
Yeah, I'm going forward. I'll just speak louder. So at this point in time, we have a staff report which has recommendations for conditions, rewording of minor variances, and so on. So I could have the applicant and/or agent please introduce themselves, name, an address where you can be found, and contribute to your application.
Thank you. Hi, Adrian Gignac-Eddy, developer from Hamilton.
All right, developer from Hamilton. Is there anything you wish to add to the application? You've seen the report presumably, and you've seen staff's recommendations and comments.
Nothing I wish to add at the moment.
You're in support?
Yes, I'm in support.
Okay. Any anybody from the gallery, committee member, have any questions or comments to the applicant? Well, thank you. Thank you. All right, have a good evening. With respect to this current application, so we're on to a different application at this point. That one has been completed.
I just have to speak up because
No, you already have. That's fine.
it's not personal.
Okay, thank you. Does any member of the committee have a question regarding this question or clarification regarding this application? No. Anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak this application?
I couldn't hear what was going on because of the noise. Could you repeat it? Sorry.
This is an application at 83 Lincoln Avenue, St. Catharines, for a proposed relief for 5 minor variances for a proposed 4-unit townhouse dwelling with 2 interior accessory dwelling units. The 5 minor variances have been reviewed in the staff report. Staff have commented on the variances independently with their recommendations, conditions, et cetera. And we are about to hear this application. All right, so does any member, so if there's no one in the gallery who wishes to speak this application, we will go back to the committee for a motion, please. I just want to make clear, there's nobody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application for 83? Like that guy back there does not wish to speak to it? Okay. All right, yes, so we're on to the motion part. How exciting.
Can I say that again?
There are conditions.
And there are complete. Okay, I can do that. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A2126 is presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the one condition.
Conditions, two different variances.
Okay. Two conditions. As contained in the technical report, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
All those in favor of the motion? Okay, to the applicant, your application has been approved unanimously with respect to the staff recommendations, yeah. All right, happy?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So in terms of, you're free to go. We have new business. Any new business? No new business?
No, well, new business is, Rosa and I will be attending the OCA conference. Yep. Rosa and I will be attending the OCA conference, and we will bring back all kinds of material. I'm not sure if Tom will clarify that after. We will bring back any material and share and have a discussion.
Great, thank you. Enjoy the conference. The date of the next hearing is not April 15th. It must,
No.
in fact, be something more like May.
So we will have a special hearing on Thursday, April 30th, and we'll have a regular hearing on May 20th.
May 20th and
Okay.
April 30th. Okay, great. May we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, everybody. All committee members have a motion to adjourn the meeting.